Guys, so I'm trying to make this work for us. I wrote some notes right here. It says chairs with no rebar outside of face of wall. So this is probably outside of the face of the wall of the column, a wall, probably the interior. And these are chairs holding up rebar. So this would represent where the chairs sit or come in contact with the floor, formwork, etc. below. All right, let's take a look at that. So over here, that's the chair you saw there. Now this is the one that's quite confusing to me. Let me show you first where we're going with this. So this is, Whitecap. Whitecap makes, well, a few companies make this chair. And they look like that. And you can find it in 7-inch. I was able to find it. I don't know if I could find it in 1979 in 7-inch, but apparently you can. This, you put your rebar going across here and then rebar wherever you want it. Tie it wherever you want it. It doesn't have to, you can have them cross right there and then tie the rebar together. It doesn't have to be a chair that has ability to click two directions like this one. Yeah, there's multiple chair versions, but if you can just go that way, you can put rebar on top and wire tie it. It's just same deal. So there we are looking at that. So I look at the core sample. And I grab one of those pieces there, and I try to cut it apart and try to pretend like I can't see this section, that this is actually the top. So that would be the top section. And there's the rebar there. So as they core down, they cut through it, and we see the rebar and then that piece there. Now I got to explain why why this isn't touching. Why is it not touching? Well, doing so much rebar, sometimes you'll have spacing where the guy won't tie all of the rebar together to the chairs. Let it rest there and tie every other chair, etc. And some chairs just don't get tied. So if you get that cutaway, you possibly would get this section looking through, but he'd have to cut and leave this back piece on that we can't see the core sample. And I have another problem. So here's that. Problem having is that's the top of the chair. It's pretty far off. That would be the bottom, and that would be the rebar placement. It's pretty far off, and it's pretty heavy duty chair. I'd have to, so that would have to be this backside. This would be the cutaway view. This would expose, this part would be left behind. This would cut right through, and we would be looking at, just by an odd duck chance, that he cuts through the rebar, and on the backside is the other leg of this, and the leg that's left behind is inside the concrete. But we don't see it crossing anywhere here. As you can see, it has 90-degree turns, and we don't see any 90s on this. It just would have been so lucky, if you will. I'm just trying to think if you could even have it out here and then you just happen to cut it like that, and then, you know, the rebar was off, the chair was off. But I talked about this being a chair or a ceiling repair. I can get it to be the chair on the floor if they'll cutaway happen the way I just described it. So that would be where his tape measure is locking us. So we would go from here 13 to 7, and then you look for that chair, 6-inch chair. Pretty good. You can get 6-inch chairs in a lot of places, but that also tells us our concrete, our rebar placement is approximately 6 inches off the center line. It's probably, there's 6 and there's 13. So, I wish I could see more there. But it's approximately 7 inches off the center line of the bottom. So that appears to be, presents as a chair. And so that's where I'm going with that. That's where we're going with that. And it looks like that's the chair there, the same style chair. They have the little tips on them. And again, it doesn't come out through this tape measure or back here, rebar. So that's why I extrapolate that this is probably a face column, and the rebar went up to the top of it and stopped. So there's the cold joint. That would be there about 7 inches. So the rebar would be sitting, like right there. Circle. And it will be sitting somewhere about here and coming this direction. So let's see if we can tie that together like that. And it would be apparently not two-directional at this point, that our rebar, because we don't see it coming out of here at all, out of this entire column. So it appears it would be going that way into the building. So other directional reinforcement would have been where? I would expect it to be right, going the other direction also in the front. I call that a cold joint because you can see the shape of it. But I would expect it to be two-directional, at least going across the face. So here will be the face. So this is the column. Let's do the column. So maybe let me fill it in good. So that's the column, and then here's the outside face that you would view from this. So there's your view from. There's a view from the outside of the building. All right. So there's the chairs here inside with the rebar. So circles. So it would be these little circles. I'm going to take a little liberty here. You've seen me do this before. Making my little stirrups and also rebar. I'm going to put it in there. Too bad I can't turn it. Sorry, guys. So that's these 4 guys here. I'm going to get rid of the dot step. And stirrups. So there's a stirrup right here. See the stirrup right there? And so there's the stirrup, and the cover concrete is, as you can see it, pretty hefty, pretty nice. It looks like it's the black rebar still, and yet water seemed to be penetrating there as we see. It doesn't appear, it looks like the black rebar again, but this appears as rusted. Okay, so we don't have our rebar going the other direction. I don't see it poking through here at all. So it appears the concrete, that these columns didn't just stand out. Like they didn't just. I don't think this building had columns standing out. Like let's lay this the slab, right? I don't think the building was mounted like that. I think the slabs were mounted around the columns. So the slabs are mounted around the columns, like this, and through the column rather. But we'll get to that. Let me just work this a little bit. So this is the concrete slab. That's kind of good. It did that. So this is the concrete slab, and then I want to leave that spot open. And I'm gonna leave this open. So that's our concrete slab. Here's our rebar. So the rebar went into and onto that chair. Hopefully it'll fill that one up. Let's see my choices. Yeah, let's go with that, and let me make it a different color. Let's make it this color. All right, so it stands out. So there's that rebar. So the concrete, you can see the slab is engaged. I mean, I'm looking at one piece of rebar. Could it have engaged sideways here into here with rebar? Well, the chair's up here, so if it was, it would have had the steel low in the column. Here's the column here. As we see it, if I can flip this around, so this would so this would be the chair here. We're still looking at the chair, and the floor would go this way. So I know I can't turn it one more, so I'm going to turn it back because probably orientation-wise it'd drive you crazy. So this is the outside again, I believe, because again we don't see a little bit of material here, and so the problem I'm having is I don't see the steel. Let's say it was low going into here, and what set it up, I don't know. There could be something in there, another chair, but it would be over here is what we're driving at. So the other steel that I'm referencing, let's see if I can make that small for a second, would come into here like this, and it would interlock. Well, let's run it right across. It would run right across. But when it failed, if it went right across, it would have to get through here. Well, we see 3, and I shouldn't assume that the 4th one's there, but I'm going to assume the 4th one is still there. This rebar is so thick that the half-inch steel that I think they ran on the decking did not shear that away on the other side. And I'm going to assume that the overlap goes into the top of the column here in the lower column. I'm sort of assuming that this is the floor that's between here, and then this just, when this went down, it took a rotation like that. It caused this to spall off, all of this outside to spall off. So when the floor tilted down and pulled away, it created, what was left is this shape here. As it buckled, or however you want to think of it failing. But the floor would have been here, and I know I'm scaling it wrong for you, but let's do that. And now let's go with the weird shape. And that would have been that floor, 8 inches, 9 inches, whatever it might have been. But that's where I'm not seeing this other steel. I'm just seeing the one steel coming here, which means that this deck was really minimally engaged. I thought I saw at least 2 pieces of steel sticking out one time of a column this direction, but I don't really recall it sticking out in multiple directions. This is the outside wall. It would be nice to see steel sticking out here. Now it could have pulled this way when it went down. It could have pulled this way out, which we've seen it happen before. And then I said in a previous video today or yesterday, however you watched it, and I called them, think of them as roach antenna. They're little antennas that would have been, that are standing on top of the pool deck columns that are sticking up. So it looks like two antennas, and they're parallel to each other like that, and the column is like that, where it's punctured through, and you see the deck is down here and 2 antennas sticking up. Of course, you see the rabbit ears also. They're bent over. They're bent over. And when they bent over, they spalled off this section here. And that's times 4, 2 on each side. I think going pretty much north to south no west to east, no four directions, as I observed. So perhaps these little roach antenna pulled themselves through when this went down. So when this separated and went down, they pulled this one out, going out here, pull out, pull out, and then rotating downwards, causing that fracture up here also. And then as it went down, it whipped itself around the front. Concrete's more back here. Whipped itself around the front of that rebar right here, let's call it, or the other side. So there's the rebar right here. So let's do a circle. Let's put it in here. And then let's do a piece of rebar like that. Oops. And let's put it in there. So as it goes down, it pulls out. It pulls out around the bar and down. Once it clears the bar, it no longer rubs against here. Well, listen to what I just said. It rubbed against there. So then I zoom in and I try to find where the two of them came across each other. Now, I told you guys I've got some policing background. I didn't tell you everything, but one of the things that they teach you is that one of the courses was actually an FBI course. I'll give you that one. And it says when two metals touch, they've exchanged it, whether you know it or not, whether you can observe it or not. When two metals touch, they've exchanged something. Well, if we look at this, it looks like no exchange took place, especially at the high speed and the friction that would have taken place. You think you would have seen some grinding here. But instead, it seems like all the reaction took place with, it's still making it happen. If there's rebar here, that the concrete was still here, and somehow it took the moment and went down like that, avoiding dragging the metal across metal here. So if it was placed, let's say it was placed at this, in this case, thereabouts in the middle, the rebar. And so when it went down, and I lost my, did I lose it? There it is. So it stayed away from the steel, and it pulled itself away like that. All right, and down it went. When it cleared it, at some point, it burst away, and it cleared and went down. We're looking at the wrong side of this, or, well, it's good enough for us to work from. All right, there's his measurement lines where he looks like he's center lined, taking readings probably to determine density. I don't know what his machine is there, but it's way up here, obviously, where there's no issue. Down here would matter, unless he's trying to do a profile saying, all right, look, I got more steel up here than I do down here, and just documenting it for that case. But obviously, if we look closely here, there's really no pull out going on here. These were moved over to a yard, so they took some, pounding, tossing around, and everything else as we see with the excavator. So maybe we lost it during that. Maybe we moved during movement. Maybe it was still connected, because we've seen how NIST handles evidence, that they just, it doesn't matter to them how they handle it. Just put it over there and we'll look at it from that point, not from the point of where it actually is located. So that's very critical in evaluating this, is that, hell, maybe it did have a piece of concrete in there, and they just said, well, that's going to fall off and hurt somebody, so let's just take a sledgehammer to it and pound it out. It could be as simple as that. Even one of these fractures could be that way, as I showed in another video where they just use a shovel and go at it and bang at it and everything else, and they use an excavator to move this stuff instead of just slings, and documenting it and keeping it braced before moving it. There is no bracing before moving this to lock it in place. Like weld it, put it in a cage weld it closed, and then lift the cage up so you can have the true form of this. No, it's obviously just grab it, move it over, and if some more spalling happened, we'll document it like it happened somewhere else at their location, not because of your movement. Um, so some of this could clearly be because of movement. I'm going to end this video, but wanted to give you something to think about. Wanted to give you the chairs. I wanted to go over how we can possibly call this piece of metal here a chair now. That would give us this concrete that looks about similar. This ring now I have an issue with. So they were drilling down, they stopped, they pulled back out, and they started drilling again. This time they shifted over a bit and made this secondary ring, because it's weird. This ring is here, but it's not here. So it's kind of weird. It's like, you know, maybe they had the thing off on an angle, and then they corrected the angle, and then went straight down. So that's definitely got me in the weird category, and that would have been around the 9.5-inch mark. And then he would still core. All right, so maybe he didn't have a 16-inch core bit. Maybe he had a 10-inch and then core 10-inch and went to the store and purchased, you know, a 14-inch one. Oh, we need a thicker one. So then he purchased, and we went back down a whole second time larger. I don't know. I don't see him measuring it the width-wise. This is probably slurry, but what's interesting again is this. So there's the end of the profile, the rib of the two ribs of the reinforcement. And this appears to be teardrop, bent shaped. So it's almost like it fits in here. Like if I was to grab this, since this was put together after it came out of the hole, it looks like it would be just about there, which would put us back touching that chair, if that would fit into there. And I don't see any rubbing or scratching on this metal, so you know, it's got a weird story to tell. A very weird story to tell, especially down here. My guess is there was another piece of rebar in there that they decided wasn't worth the imagery, I guess, because it just seems like this is round enough to take the shape. Presents as it could be the same shape as up here, which means reinforcement. Another piece of reinforcement. IMO, in my opinion. All right, have a good night. Just wanted to give that to you. I mean, well, let's do that. Look, that's about a 1 inch up. Now, they don't have it in this core sample over here. They have it at, so there's the bottom. So they come up about 8.5 inches. This one doesn't. This one comes up. So 8.5 from 6 would give us 14.5. We're at 13. So it is kind of an odd ductile reinforcement profile deck. This is yeah, this is very. Oh wait a minute, this one is over by the yeah, first floor deck cores. Yeah, is this the one by? Right, I would need this. Hold on, I would need this imagery. It's going to be more defined. So this is the one that's 8.5. It's that one, right? So I want the one over there by this one. So this one I want to be the same as this one. So this one is 6 to 13. Let's call it 7 inches. So this should be 7. So let's take a look, see if it matches. So there's 6, and there's 14.5 with these broken materials. Let's see. So around 6 to 9, another 3 inches looks like reinforcement. So if we come over to this one, and so about 3 inches puts that reinforcement right there. So it appears that his sample doesn't have the other piece of reinforcement showing in this sample, but it appears it was presented there as it presents Here also, same thing. What are the odds that 3 inches apart that there's a round-ish void that's created? A round void is created approximately 3 inches apart from where the steel is, and then there's a round void created at 3 inches apart from there. Oh, yeah, this is that one with the different colors and like the dental thing going on I talked about. And it's got the real chip, the real size chip concrete. Look at the real, see the larger concrete? That's some paste from the slurry from drilling. And that's significant. That's 4 inches. Remember, concrete weighs about 150 pounds per square foot. So you're going to get about 37 pounds. You're already maxed out your weight for your 40 pounds per square foot, as this report states the deck will take live loads. Well, that's the live load right there, all eaten up, isn't it? Under this dead load added of concrete. And that would be the same here. Same there, pretty much. It's pretty close. So what are the odds again that over here we get a sample that's like that? Now, interesting, this concrete mix over here tells a different story than the one over there, the size of the stone. So I thought about this one, and I looked at it, and I said, this might be a lot of paste on top of there, because there's paste here. This might be a lot of paste. I'm trying to give it some type of pass, saying I'm looking at a slurry, but wow, it would have to get all in here and everywhere else. With that said, I've also come up with a mix that would look similar to this, and it would have very small chips. It would be the like a block mix if you were making cinder blocks. It has a very small chip. So that's just a thought. Just a thought. But now we can at least look at this and say, aha, maybe not a repair, maybe just a chair, maybe this belongs down here, maybe it's a cutaway. Yes, he cut some steel. I have no idea how he fixed that. Yes, it presents as steel was here, just like it was in the 3 inches away from that steel. Looks like it's the same distance from this steel here. It's taken from this core B. It also presents as approximately 3 inches apart with a missing piece of inside there. So, all right. So that's where I am. That's where I am for you guys. Giving you an update on how I'm going with the chair. I'm going with the chair with that one. I'd like to say the slurry created that hid that. I'm trying to move it over. And this is what I would base it on. The slurry hiding it. Let's zoom in. So there's some slurry that's really, blocking the stone behind it, and that's what it presents as. It looks like rings. So let's go a little closer if we can. No, we can't. We're 500%. We've got these rings, but with that one, I mean, wow. He didn't rinse. This one looks rinsed off. It looks like a lot of air entrainment. But this one just looks like this. I mean, that looks like that might be the slurry, but right there, that looks like the concrete mix, which is, it presents more like a damn grout. There's some air bubbles, so air entrainment on that. Yep, I'd like to know the history of this, repairs-wise. I'm going to end the video now. Take care. Love you all. Bye.